Shipwrecks hold secrets and tell stories of battles lost at sea and tragic fates. Some of them remain dangerous even now.
We assume the torpedoes are still on board.
Countless sunken warships rest beneath the North and Baltic Seas. Very few people have ever seen them.
You descend into the unknown with tons of water above your head.
Now, scientists, technicians, and divers are uncovering the secrets and dangers of these submerged war machines. Off the coast of Rügen, in the Baltic Sea, the Deneb is at work, a survey ship from the Federal Maritime and Hydrographic Agency. 20 meters below it lies a wreck. It may pose a hazard to other vessels. The first professional diver to inspect it, Mario Strelke.
I don't really know what to expect, but I'm ready for the adventure. I know which way is up and down. I can move around a bit underwater, so I think I'll manage.
Mario Strelke receives his breathing air through a surface-supplied helmet. He's been diving for over 20 years. Strelke has experience, emergency reserves, and constant voice communication with the surface. And yet, every dive carries risks and uncertainty. As he passes through the thermocline, where warmer water meets the cold layer below, the visibility improves.
Around 5 meters above the seabed, I passed through the thermocline, and suddenly the water was clear. You could see right into the depths and get a first impression.
A small vessel lies below. As Mario inspects it more closely, he reports back to the team on the surface.
There's still some debris visible.
How's visibility today?
I can see about 3 meters.
Chief diver Holger Siekert and Captain Andreas Thies are listening closely.
You can tell how the diver's doing by how they speak, whether they're fine, nervous, or sensing a problem. It all comes through. That's why we listen closely and react right away if needed.
At this depth, divers can stay down for half an hour.
You've got 8 minutes left.
With experience, you can picture what's being described. It's an old, small fishing boat, 12 meters long, not much left of it. We don't know how long it's been down there.
It's clearly been underwater for a long time. The wreck is thick with mussels. Why it sank is unclear. The diver searches for the highest point of the wreck, any part that could pose a risk to passing vessels. But this wreck is no longer a threat.
You could clearly see the starboard side. It's leaning 15 to 20 degrees to port and completely buried in sand. When I scraped away the marine growth, I could see a bit of blue paint. Unfortunately, I couldn't make out the name. The deck has completely collapsed, and the bridge is gone. From the engine room, all you could still make out was the propeller at the stern, and a bit of the rudder. That's it.
The team suspect it's an old cutter, one of many built for East Germany's fishing fleet in the early 1950s. One of many ships whose journeys ended off the coast of Rügen, especially in the days before modern navigation, when heading to sea meant real adventure and real danger.
Hier findet man eigentlich aus allen Epochen Wracks.
You'll find wrecks here from every era. Some lie right up on the beach. After storms and sediment shifts, wrecks get uncovered again and again.
Storms were often the cause of ships sinking. The currents off Rügen are especially treacherous. That's one reason why so many ships were lost here. Around 300 wrecks are believed to lie around Rügen alone. Across the entire German Baltic Sea, the Federal Maritime and Hydrographic Agency has recorded about 750. But not all wrecks were claimed by nature. Several nautical miles off Helgoland, on the North Sea floor, lies the Ariadne, a warship of the Imperial German Navy that sank at the very outset of World War I. Helgoland has been turned into a fortress. On August 28, 1914, British forces attacked German patrol boats near the island. German light cruisers and torpedo boats rushed to help, but the Royal Navy had the upper hand. The Germans lost 4 ships that day. One of them was the Ariadne. After just 15 minutes, she was disabled and sank soon after, most likely with live torpedoes still on board. But are they still dangerous today? Aboard the research vessel Heinke, scientists from the Alfred Wegener Institute want to find out. They're using a crawler, a remotely operated tracked vehicle. Leonie Buchle, an underwater robotics engineer, is the first to spot the Ariadne at 5:30 in the morning on the ship's multi-beam sonar scan.
Got it. I just started the scan a second too late. Let's try again from the other direction.
You want to approach from the north?
Yeah, that would be good. We're collecting multi-beam data to pinpoint the wreck's exact location. The crawler will circle the wreck, so we can't drop it right above it or too far away. With this scan, we can determine exactly where it is and what the surroundings look like.
To be sure, Leonie takes another scan.
Can you move it a bit to the right?
What do you mean right?
Starboard. In sailing direction.
Upside down, at 40 meters depth, a warship from another era.
We're aware that lives were lost here. The history is fascinating. We should really be looking at both sides, what happened back then and what impact it has today. I always ask myself, why did it sink?
Visibility was poor that day in August 1914. Thick fog blanketed the North Sea. The battle was chaotic. The British had bigger, more modern ships. The small cruiser Ariadne had to face 2 massive battle cruisers. She was hit repeatedly in a very short time. Around 4 p.m., the burning ship sank. 64 sailors went down with her. The Ariadne was built in Bremen in 1901. By the time war broke out, she was already outdated. A light cruiser, fast and maneuverable, designed for reconnaissance, escort duty, and raids. But with only light armor, she wasn't built for heavy combat. The Ariadne was 100 meters long, crewed by 257 men, armed with 10 rapid-fire guns and 2 torpedo tubes. She barely had time to fire before she went down. Since then, munitions have been rusting and the explosives may be leaking into the water. TNT, highly explosive and highly toxic. For the first time, the crawler is being deployed to collect water and sediment samples directly from the wreck. Visibility is 2 to 3 meters, unusually good for the North Sea. A flatfish appears to watch the expedition. And so do the engineers from Seaterra. Now they'll find out whether all their weeks of programming have paid off.
I don't see the wreck on the sonar yet.
We should be about 60 meters away.
I was expecting it to be here by now.
Several cameras on the crawler are recording, but the wreck remains out of sight.
Looks like we're farther off than we thought.
The crawler is remote controlled and navigated by compass and sonar.
We need to go east.
Still no wreck in sight.
The search feels like looking for a needle in a haystack. But then, suddenly, it appears. There it is. The hull of the Ariadne. A few years ago, the researchers had already filmed this wreck using an underwater drone. Large holes were visible along the hull. And the torpedo tubes, now inhabited by lobsters. Only they know if torpedoes still lie inside and in what condition. Divers and drones are neither allowed nor able to enter the destroyed ship. But what a century underwater leaves behind has been seen firsthand by divers off the Danish coast. Yellow explosive residue from TNT, carcinogenic and toxic, found inside a sea mine. Salt water had corroded the metal casing. On this World War I submarine, they found 18 mines and 6 torpedoes. A hazardous site and yet a habitat. Lobsters live here as if in an artificial reef. Even the Danish diver is impressed. Now, the multi-beam scans of the Ariadne become crucial. They reveal a particularly large opening in the hull. That's where the crawler is supposed to take its first samples.
Let's see if we can get close to the hull without too much tilt.
At the hull, the engineers still manage the sample collection manually. The sampling cups are handled by the robotic arm, executing 40 precisely programmed movements.
The wreck has a large hole in the bow. If explosives are leaking, then probably from there. That's the main focus of the crawler mission, to move right up to that opening and collect water and sediment samples.
A day aboard the Heinke costs 20,000 euros. But that's not the only reason these samples are so valuable.
Keep it going.
These samples could help project manager Matthias Brenner and his team prove that the Ariadne's weapons still pose a threat, though in a different way than they did 100 years ago.
We're interested in the environmental risk posed by these munitions, because explosives don't just explode, they're proven to be toxic. In human medicine, we know they're carcinogenic and mutagenic.
The first organisms affected are fish. Many now live among the wrecks. The team hopes to detect signs of TNT-related damage in their bodies. The crew casts a net close to the wreck, right where toxins are believed to be leaking out. They're targeting fish that dwell near the seafloor, species most likely to have long-term exposure to the explosives.
We're looking at bottom-dwelling species and some pelagic fish that live near the seabed, like gurnards. This is great. We'll process them now, put them on ice, and send them for chemical analysis.
Only fish that survive the catch are suitable for lab testing.
Organs start to decompose as soon as the fish dies. That's why we euthanize them quickly and remove the organs right away, so they can be analyzed properly.
Sea urchins and starfish also landed in the net. But when it comes to human consumption, fish are what matter. The researchers dissect a flatfish, a dab. It's known to stay in one location and may have accumulated especially high levels of TNT at the wreck site.
We want to find out where in the fish the TNT accumulates. There's a big difference between detecting it in the digestive tract, where it would be excreted, or finding it in the fillet, which ends up on our plates. That's a crucial question.
Another important question, are TNT levels rising as more poison leaks out? In dabs caught near wrecks, TNT has already been found in the past. The concentrations were still harmless for humans, but not for the fish themselves.
We've already seen liver tumors in some fish. Tumors are visible immediately. But so far, the specimens have been okay.
To confirm that high TNT levels and tumors aren't coincidence, the samples will be compared with fish from far outside the wreck zone. The sea holds ammunition that was lost in war and munitions that were deliberately dumped, especially after World War II, including chemical weapons. During Operation Deadlight, the Allies sank 30,000 tons of German poison gas shells, along with their ships, far off the Norwegian coast. Off Helgoland, artillery shells filled with the nerve agent tabun lie on the seabed. Experts say recovering them would be riskier than letting them corrode. Hauling them up could cause them to rupture. Conventional munitions are a different story. Some 1.6 million tons lie in German waters, and new ordnance is still being discovered, most often during offshore construction, like wind farms or cable routes. Matthias Brenner worries about the toxins leaking from old munitions. Construction firms fear serious accidents if they strike explosives while dredging. That's why offshore wind farm sites are carefully cleared of explosives beforehand. These gigantic turbines rise from the seabed all along the coast. New ones are being built far off Norderney, part of Germany's energy transition. The goal is to provide millions of homes with green electricity. That electricity must be brought ashore and fed into the grid. Each grid connection is a major undertaking. One of them is called Dolwyn 4.
With Dolwyn 4, we're connecting offshore wind farms in the North Sea to the grid. We're laying power cables all the way to Lingen in Emsland, from the North Sea through the Wadden Sea, under the dike along the coast, and then underground to Lingen.
Unexploded ordnance, UXO, danger hidden beneath the sea floor. To reach the mainland, grid operator Amprion must tunnel under the island of Norderney to avoid strong currents. Cables could be washed free. The cable route is 215 kilometers long, 60 of those under the sea. The risk of encountering unexploded bombs is high.
We conducted a preliminary UXO study to identify areas of concern. Now we're using special equipment aboard the ships to investigate these potential sites to see if there are bombs or munition. With magnetic sensors, we scan the seafloor and check for anything suspicious.
The survey ship is docked in the harbor of Norderney, ready to set out. It has come from the UK and will examine the seabed section by section using its specialized gear.
So, plan for today is to head out to the center of Block 7. And the aim today is to work exclusively in Block 7 and see if on the low tide we can work down to the bottom corner. That'll be our plan for today.
Right after the briefing, the ship sets out. Every hour counts because of the tides and the weather. Out at sea, conditions can change at any moment, especially in November, like on this trip. If waves exceed 1 meter, operations become too risky. The expensive equipment could be damaged. The crew has 10 days planned. Only then can preparations for cable laying continue.
The equipment tow behind us is looking for any item that could be buried within the working limits of where the cable's going to be buried. So up to 2 to 3 meters. We're looking below that for any object with a ferrous mass, because that could be it's be classified as a potential UXO.
UXO, unexploded ordnance, are bombs that never detonated. The device about to be deployed detects them as magnetic anomalies. It's called ScanFish. It uses magnetometers to scan exactly where the cable trenches will later be dug.
We will touch the bottom and go deeper inside to make a trench. In this case, if you will have some kind of explosives or bombs or mines, during the trenching, it can explode, of course. So in this case, we must classify and find them and be sure that everything is safe.
So now I'm just going to go in and take control of the software and dive the fish below the surface. Currently it's on the surface, dive it below, and then we'll take over from there.
As soon as the device is far enough away from the ship's magnetic field, flight mode is activated. The fish then glides at a predefined depth above the seabed.
Okay, fish is safe, 3 meters depth, you've cleared a turn.
Now the ScanFish begins collecting data.
Position is stable.
Lovely.
Position is okay.
Suddenly, the ship's engine stutters. A critical moment.
Can you slow the vessel down, please? 2.5.
It's vital not to lose control of the ScanFish now.
Okay, fish is safe behind the boat. Fish is on the surface.
Had the engine failed completely, the 100,000 euro platform could have sunk and been severely damaged. The ship must stay in motion to keep the towed equipment buoyant. The ScanFish moves up and down, giving a detailed profile of the seabed. Completing all preparations for cable laying can take 1 to 2 years, from studying historical records to deploying advanced equipment and clearing UXO. And then there's the weather. As conditions worsen, the crew hauls the ScanFish back on board.
Some issues with Mother Nature we can't control. So like this forecast now, it's going to shut us down from work. So yeah, we've got to recover the gear safely. Everything was recovered safe, we were happy. So yeah, back to port and hopefully a better day tomorrow.
The crew can finish the work later. Every suspicious object the ScanFish detects is later checked by divers. And sure enough, 6 explosive artillery shells were found along the future cable route. Sometimes it's not just a bomb, it's an entire ship that's in the way. Like the Karlsruhe. The cruiser took part in the 1940 German invasion of Norway and was heavily hit. The wreck lies at a depth of 490 meters, upright, just as she once sailed. She wasn't discovered until 2017. A chance find during the inspection of a submarine cable. Still a chilling sight, cannons pointing into the sea. The swastika. And just 15 meters away, the power cable that has connected Norway and Denmark since 1977. In the Baltic Sea, the Deneb, operated by the Federal Maritime and Hydrographic Agency, continues searching for underwater obstacles off the coast of Rügen. Tony Hauptmann had the night watch. He's from the island and he knows there's still a lot of wartime debris down there.
Military objects are still found quite often, especially around Rügen and the Fehmarn Belt. Torpedoes, aerial mines, wrecked warships, you can still find those things, unfortunately. No one knows whether they're still live, but most likely they can still explode, even after all these years. That's why we approach with extreme caution.
Their area of operation covers the entire western Baltic Sea within German waters.
It's a huge area, and I'm sure there are still some secrets down there. We're constantly discovering new things.
The BSH database lists around 1,000 underwater obstacles. Most of them are wrecks. But it can also include lost cargo, cars, excavators, containers. There's not much the divers haven't seen. Today, Holger Siekert was the first to go down.
All right, I think I've got everything done here.
To do this job, divers need to be both physically and mentally fit. They check their equipment before every dive. The helmet weighs 15 kilograms and is custom fitted to the diver's head. The suit protects against cold, wind, and weather, even in winter.
You just wear more layers and then it's fine. -1, -2 degrees outside. In the water right at freezing. It only becomes impossible when the sea starts to freeze.
Wrecks are like time capsules beneath the sea, often linked to tragic stories. Because when ships went down, people usually went down with them. Divers rarely learn the full backstory, but when they do, those fates stay with them. Like the torpedo boat crew that struck a mine off Rügen during World War II.
The captain got on the radio and described going down with the ship. That stuck with me, hearing firsthand what happened. But you always have to assume lives were lost.
Some finds are also of special interest to archaeologists. Like this paddle steamer, discovered by divers a few years ago after a tip from Danish colleagues. The Friedrich Franz sank in 1849. Her first voyage on the Baltic was also her last. At the time, it was a state-of-the-art vessel. Even today, the spokes of the paddle wheel are intact. The find was a minor sensation. Paddle steamers were only used in the Baltic for a brief time. The Friedrich Franz is probably the only one ever to lie in German waters.
Es gibt Unterlagen zu diesem Schiff und die besagen, dass das
There are documents about this ship. They say it was rammed by a rival vessel from the Travemünde Shipping Guild, probably due to competition.
Ja, gerammt worden ist. Vermutlich aus Konkurrenzgründen.
That's the kind of story you only come across once in your career. It's especially fascinating when you also have the history to go with it, when you can retrace what happened, when and why. That's what makes it special.
And knowing where something happened, that's especially important. An underwater obstacle along a busy shipping lane can be a major hazard. One such route lies just off the coast of Rügen.
The bottleneck in the Baltic is right outside our front door, the cadet trench.
Everything has to go through here. There's really not much space.
Northwest of Rügen, between Denmark's Falster Island and the German coast, lies the cadet trench. At its narrowest point, it's only 500 meters wide, and it bends. Tens of thousands of ships squeeze through here each year. The cadet trench is the most important corridor for deep draft vessels. To prevent collisions, it has traffic lanes, just like a highway. In the past, collisions happened frequently here. Any shipwreck here becomes the next obstacle in what is arguably the Baltic's trickiest passage.
We also found a historic wreck here, the paddle steamer. I think it's lying right in the middle. Over time, it'll probably collapse more. But sometimes things rise up again.
Currents can shift the position of wrecks. They wash around and under them, causing scouring. When a ship sinks into a scour hole, It might even rise again and stand upright. An underwater obstacle can be struck by passing ships, but it's also a threat to marine life. Again and again, divers discover ghost nets tangled in wrecks, old fishing gear lost at sea that continues catching indefinitely. Not just fish die in them. Seals, porpoises, and seabirds also get trapped.
This information is important for fishermen too. If they know there's an obstacle down there, they don't have to drag their nets across it. If fish get caught in those old nets and can't escape, they'll just die for no reason, and that shouldn't happen.
Many divers carry knives, not only to free themselves if caught in drifting nets, but to help trapped animals as well. Divers from the Worldwide Fund for Nature carefully cut plastic strands from a flatfish. A happy ending, for this fish at least. Ghost nets make up half of all plastic waste in the oceans. The Worldwide Fund for Nature alone has recovered 33 tons of such nets from the Baltic in recent years. Off the coast of Rügen, the Deneb sets course for another wreck. The ship makes 24 trips across the Baltic each year. Each mission lasts about 10 days. Most of the crew have been on board for many years. The two divers have worked together for almost 20 years. They have to trust each other blindly. They alternate dives, but are always both ready, just in case. In an emergency, one is always standing by.
My partner is the safety diver. If something happens to me, he's already suited up and can jump in to get me out.
And vice versa. It's a risky job, many meters below the surface.
You don't know where you're heading. You know there's tons of water above you. So the rule is, take it slow. Don't act like a hero down there.
Air hose, telephone cable, and depth line, called the umbilical cord. The signalman on deck monitors the diver's position.
He has to be able to move freely, but I also need to feel the tension. If there's too much slack, a loop might form. There has to be just enough pull to know I still have contact.
The umbilical is the diver's lifeline. It supplies air and a communication line.
You heading to the surface now?
I'm on my way to the bow.
Three minutes left, Mario.
I'm not going down to the bow thrusters.
Time is a crucial factor. Even though divers get their air from the surface, they can't stay down indefinitely. Pressure causes nitrogen to dissolve in the blood. After a certain period, depending on depth, they must surface slowly with decompression stops to let the gas escape.
If you come up too fast, nitrogen forms bubbles in your bloodstream. It clogs the arteries and blood can't flow.
That's the dreaded diver's disease, decompression sickness. It also happens if too many dives are done back to back. At least 24 hours should separate them. It can be life-threatening.
It usually starts with itchy skin. Those are the first signs. Then it can progress to numbness or paralysis. In the worst case, unconsciousness or death.
In an emergency, every minute counts. The ship has a decompression chamber on board, where pressure is adjusted to allow the body to safely release nitrogen bubbles.
By going back to pressure depth, the bubbles shrink and can be exhaled.
Despite all the risks, underwater, you need human senses and fine motor skills. Drones can support the divers, but they can't replace them. Working in the North Sea is even tougher. High waves, deep water, poor visibility, and powerful tides. Off Helgoland, officer of the watch, Bente Molthagen, keeps the Heinke in position. The sea is calm, but the area is busy. It's one of the world's most trafficked marine corridors. The control center in Bremerhaven is constantly in contact.
While we were conducting research this afternoon, we heard that traffic control was warning other vessels. Heinke is operating between two buoys. Because we've got instruments in the water, we're restricted in maneuverability. So shipping has to give us some room.
The German Bight is a traffic separation zone with shipping lanes for each direction. While Bente logs position, wind force, and operations, other ships wait in the dark of night for clearance to proceed toward Hamburg, Cuxhaven, or Bremerhaven. Meanwhile, the Heinke awaits morning to send the crawler back into the deep. Scientists at the Alfred Wegener Institute have been researching for years whether toxic substances from sunken munitions are polluting the sea. The explosives on board warships are just one part of the problem.
The North Sea is thought to contain around 10,000 wrecks. About 1,000 of them are known to be military. But we have no idea how much total ammunition is down there. The North Sea has many dumping grounds, not just in German waters. The English Channel alone is a massive ship graveyard. So yes, the North Sea has a serious munitions problem.
In the German part of the North Sea alone, about 120 warships are believed to lie on the seabed. One of them is the Mainz. Like the Ariadne, it was sunk in World War I during the Battle of Helgoland. The Mainz was sent to support German patrols under attack by British destroyers. She was launched in 1909 and belonged to the next generation of light cruisers. Larger, heavier, faster than the Ariadne. Her guns were more modern and more effective. The Mainz was 130 meters long, with a crew of 367, 16 rapid-fire guns, and 2 torpedo tubes. But even she stood no chance against the far superior British forces. Heavily damaged, the crew scuttled her themselves to keep her out of enemy hands. British officer later wrote,
"The last thing I saw was a total wreck. Her entire midship a smoking inferno. At the bow and stern, one gun each still spit fire and fury like a wounded wildcat gone mad."
Maybe they knew they didn't stand a chance against the Royal Navy. We can't know for sure. But I certainly wouldn't want to be in that position, going overboard into cold water, knowing it's the end. That thought never really leaves you.
Most of the Mainz crew were rescued by the British. But for 89 men, the ship became their final resting place. Still, a few years ago, recreational divers entered the wreck and even removed items. That's considered looting. It violates the sanctity of the dead and is strictly forbidden. Research divers and drones only examined the outside to document the wreck's condition.
This is the collapsed section of the hull. As you can see, most of the superstructure is gone. Only the armored deck remains.
During the battle, the Mainz fired off most of her munitions. Little was expected to remain on board. Yet 4 years ago, researchers measured elevated TNT levels here. At the Ariadne site, those TNT concentrations were even higher. This supports the theory that many shells might still lie behind the Ariadne's hull plating, where salt water steadily corrodes the casings.
We believe she had very little time to fire torpedoes, so most of them are probably still on board.
A toxic dump site. Yet home to lobsters and anemones.
Filter feeders actually thrive here. When you feed by filtering particles from the water column, this becomes a good spot to live, because the concentrations are slightly elevated.
The crawler is now assigned a special task, to collect a sea anemone from the Ariadne's hull. Normally, only a diver could do that, but with the strong current, it would be dangerous. Here, the crawler has a clear advantage.
The big advantage over divers is we can work at practically any depth. Divers can operate safely to about 30 meters. Beyond that, it gets tough. For the crawler, it doesn't matter if it's 10 or 100 meters deep. We can position ourselves exactly and grab from there. Oh, there's a crab.
You're, what, 2.5 meters from the hull? Brownies.
Is that a sea anemone?
A bottle.
Let me check below if I can move forward a bit.
Lots of crabs. They're defending their territory from this intruder. They're probably not used to crawlers down here.
But more challenging than the crabs are the sea anemones.
I saw a mussel and a sea anemone on the other side, right there.
Slowly, the robotic arm approaches, but the feathery creature contracts and slips right through the gripper. Second try, with a different tool. This one seems to have a better grip.
I think we got something, right?
Yes, it's a sea anemone.
Now the crab got scared.
This time, it worked.
First time in science history, no?
We should mark this epic moment.
For the first time, a sea anemone has been collected from the hull of the Ariadne. An exciting moment for marine biologist André Vedenin. He suspects the anemone is saturated with toxins from the explosives. On top of that, it has its own venom, because a sea anemone is not a plant, but a predatory animal with stinging tentacles. Right now, they've been retracted.
Some wrecks show clearly elevated concentrations in surrounding water. Others barely any, even if munitions are present. So when we talk about salvaging explosives, it may make sense for some wrecks, but not others. That's one key result from our project.
After 3 days in the North Sea, the Heinkes journey ends with a special ritual. Ute Marx is not only a scientific lab assistant, but also a passionate horn player. She brings her hunting horn on every expedition and plays it whenever the Heinke returns to port. The scientists and engineers are pleased with the mission. The crawler's newly developed gripper passed its first field test. Toxicologists at the University of Kiel later found clear traces of TNT and its breakdown products in the water and sediment samples from around the wreck. On future missions by the Alfred Wegener Institute, the crawler will help pinpoint the exact sources of these leaking toxins. The Deneb continues her work in the Baltic. For 30 years, she served the Federal Maritime and Hydrographic Agency, covering enough sea miles to circle the Earth at least 14 times. Everyone on board is a multi-talent. The divers are also trained as hydrographic surveyors or small boat operators. The captain is both a navigator and a survey engineer. Part of the job is filming too.
I film everything as well, for the wreck database, so that any diver who comes after me can see what it looked like down there, and track any changes over time.
Thanks to this work, sea charts are constantly updated, both digital and paper versions.
There's still a lot left out there. We've got plenty of sites to check this year. Some of them still have old depth data. We don't re-inspect everything just because we're nearby. There are intervals, and they're based on the importance of the wreck and how deep it lies.
Every obstacle, every change must be mapped. Meanwhile, the seabed is getting more and more crowded. Pipelines, wind turbine foundations, undersea cables, and on top of that, munitions, wrecks, and other hazards. Captain Thies recalls one case where time was of the essence.
A pontoon barge lost its legs in the cadet trench without anyone noticing. Another ship struck the debris and collided with something it didn't even know was there. It punched a perfectly round hole in the hull, thankfully above the waterline. So the Deneb was dispatched over Christmas, found the legs quickly, and the danger was averted. That's why it's so important to have vessels like this ready, to react quickly in emergencies.
Safety on the water and under the water. That's the job of the Federal Maritime and Hydrographic Agency and the scientists at the Alfred Wegener Institute. They keep watch over the wrecks and the dangers they still hold.